guys, good afternoon and welcome to today's session. My name is Primus Veku and this is our AWS tutorial series. I am really pissed off this afternoon. I recorded the whole video and it was just showing just one thing, which is this page right here. I don't know how I recorded it, but yeah, I did an hour-long video, the same video that we're doing again, and it was not displaying the other part, so it was showing just this diagram here, unfortunately. So I have to record it again. So it's a lot of work that goes in here doing this, guys. So please, I'm tired. It's been whole morning trying to get this out, but we have to do what we have to do. So please go ahead and subscribe to our channel to support us with this effort. We're putting in a lot of energy here to get you through to this AWS course. Please do not hesitate to share it, to subscribe to our channel, to comment and leave us your comments so we we can continue to provide this type of content. So today, guys, we'll be talking about virtual private clouds, or VPCs, what we call VPCs. So a virtual private cloud is simply a service that AWS offers, and you're able to use this service to launch AWS resources into a virtual network that you create for yourself. So you carve out a network for yourself and you can create AWS resources inside that network. This is what we mean by the VPC, the virtual private cloud. So you create it's as the name indicates, like it is virtual because you're creating it in the cloud. It's not like a network in your house where you can see your router, you can see your whatever. This one is created in the cloud space and you can create resources inside. Remember, your house network has things connected to it like your TV, your computer, and all of these devices have IP addresses. It's the same thing with the VPCs that we'll be creating. We'll create some resources that will have internet access. We'll put those ones in what we call public subnets. There will be others that do not need internet access and we'll put them in the private subnets. And so you see here the concept of subnets, right? Subnets is just a range or a block where you carve out and say, hey, my resources that will be public to the internet should belong to this range. They should have these IP addresses. They should belong here, while those that should not have internet access should belong in this other block. All right. So we also would create route tables, internet gateways, and NAT gateways. You will learn all of these as we go along, right? So this virtual network looks like the traditional network, but operates not in the data center, right? So the virtual private clouds operate in the cloud and not in our data centers as you would have your normal network. And it is able to scale, right? This AWS virtual private clouds can scale as much as possible. And so you are able to put your resources and scale as well. All right, so that's what a VPC is, and this is what we'll be implementing today. We'll first of all create a VPC. So this is the VPC architecture here. We'll create this VPC. Let me bring this up again. We'll create this VPC and ensure that this VPC has this CIDR range. So this CIDR block 10.0.0.0/16. That's the range we want to put this inside, right? And then we'll create two subnets, the public subnet and the private subnet. So the public subnet should have the range 10.0.1.0/24. And this, any IP address, any machine, any server that will be created in here should start, the private IP address should start with a 10.0.1 dot something. That something should be between the range of 1 to 256, right? Because once you create a /24 subnet, your or CIDR range, you're providing or you're provisioning yourself 256 IP addresses. The private subnet would be 10.0.2.0/1, which means every instance that will be created inside this private subnet would inherit the IP addresses 10.0.2 dot anything from 1 to 256 because we are operating on the /24 range. That is how these two would look, and then we'll create an internet gateway, right, and connect that internet and attach that internet gateway to this VPC. You see that this internet gateway is inside this VPC, so we'll do that and attach it there. And then we have the route tables. We have two route tables: a public route table, that's why we'll put RT public, route table public, and we have RT private, which is the private route table. And this will be connected to the subnet, to the private subnet, and this one, which is public, will be connected to the public subnet, and there will be an internet route that will be connecting to that route table that is connected to the public subnet. And to have internet access from this instance, so for this instance to be able to download things in the internet, we will need to create a NAT gateway and associate it to this to the public subnet, because the public subnet has internet access, but there's no direct access to this one, right, from here to here. So once we do that, we'll connect the route table here, this route table, to this. So there should be a link from there to here. I'll do that as we go along, right? So this is how we'll demo this. We'll log into here, create some web server in here, and create an HTML page, go to our web browser, and we should browse and have access to that web browser. That's the test we'll do. We'll log into this instance afterward also and make sure things are working as expected. All right, guys, so I will stop this show here and go back. I want to make sure that my screen is being shared. So I'll go log into the AWS account. So I'm currently logged into this AWS account, guys. We'll go ahead and create the VPC. So we'll start with the VPC only. So we want to create the VPC only. And the name we'll give it will be Primus Learning Series Public. No, VPC. Let's just put VPC. Primus Learning Series VPC. That's the VPC we want to create. And remember, we said in this diagram, the range that we want to use is a 10.0.0.0/16. That's the range we want to use for the CIDR here. So 10.0.0.0/16. That is the range we want to have. And if we scroll down here, we want to leave this at default. And that's it. We are ready to create this VPC. Remember the name of this VPC tagging. It will be tagged with this, the name, and this VPC. I will go ahead and create. So that's the very first results we've created. Note the way we are creating it. We've created this overall VPC here, this one. This is the results we've created. We'll then go ahead and create an internet gateway and attach it to this VPC. You see there's an internet gateway here that is attached to this VPC. So we'll go ahead and go to, you can see internet gateway on the left. So go ahead to the internet gateway. There are some internet gateways that are existing because I created them earlier, right? So I will go ahead actually delete this one. Let me just delete this one. Delete. I'll just type the word delete here because I want to have just two available. All right, so let me go ahead and create a new one, right? So to create an internet gateway, we'll just give it a name, Primus Learning Series, and call this internet gateway like this, IGW. So remember, there's a dash series on it, and we'll simply create. Once you create it, you see that it is not attached. You see, the state shows that it is not attached to any VPC, and it's asking you here, attached to a VPC. Remember, we have created a VPC. We need to attach this internet gateway to the VPC, and it is shown here in the diagram here, right? It is created inside this VPC, so it's attached to this VPC. This is what we want to do right here. So go ahead and attach. You can attach from here directly. So attach like this and select the VPC we just created, which is Primus Learning Series.v-VPC. Let's select that and attach the internet gateway. So that first part is done. Very nice. Now let's go back to our subnets. Remember, we need two subnets. We need a private subnet and a public subnet. Currently, there are some subnets here. You see, with this naming convention, we'll make sure name differently because I created this initially, right, in the other video, which I mentioned earlier. So let's go ahead and create two subnets. We'll create a public subnet and a private subnet. And where do we want to create this subnet? We want to create it inside our Primus Learning Series VPC, which is the VPC we just created a moment ago. So let's select that. And you remember the CIDR range is 10.0.0.0/16, which is good. That's what we want. And the first, we'll give this first one, we'll call it Primus Learning dash series dash public dash VPC. So this is how we're naming it, guys, so that it's distinguished from the other one. We have to be very careful because the other ones can deceive you. And we want to keep this. This is very, very important, guys. Very important. We want to put it in a subnet that is close to you so that your availability can be, your performance can be good, right? So we'll keep it inside US East 1A. We'll keep all our instances inside US 1A, right? US East 1A. And also, you see it already automatically picks that CIDR, and then it wants you to give it a range here. And remember, this is the range it's asking for. So it's asking for this range. Since we're creating a public subnet, want to give it a 10.0.1.0/24. That's the subnet we want to give it, right? We'll not talk about subnets today. We'll still discuss subnets in our next video. So we'll say 10.0.1.0/24. That's what we want this IP to give. And you see, it says it will give you 250. Look at this. It says it will give you 256 IP addresses once you create with that. And then it will automatically be tagged with this name here. And we're good, guys. All right. So this is our public VPC. Let's create a second one. You can attach a second one. You can create a second one by just adding there. So we will name the second one, instead of public, we'll name it private. You see? So we need a private VPC, private subnet and a public subnet. Then we'll select the availability zone, which we said should be 1A. So we want all of this to be US East 1A. All right, so we've put that, and the subnet range here, according to our diagram, who can tell me? The subnet range here, instead of 1, it should be 2. So 10.0.2.0/24. That is what we want to have, guys, on our second subnet. So 10.0.2.0/24 is what we want to have. And this also would give us 256 IP addresses. And the name should be the same, and we are good to create our two subnets. So let's go ahead and create these two subnets. They have been created, and it's perfect, right? This is perfect. Now, these subnets, look at the way they are. These subnets are not having any route tables in the internet, right? There's nothing like that. They're just created bare bones. We have to associate these subnets to our route tables. So this one is the private subnet. So we have to associate it to the private. So this right here, what did we just create? We created subnets. All right. So we just created subnets, and these would have to be associated, right? These very soon will have to be associated to a route table, but we haven't created route tables, right? We haven't created any route tables. So we'll go ahead and create two route tables. We just created two subnets. We've created two subnets. These ones, I think the Primus Learning Series Private VPC and Primus Learning Series Public VPC, these two. Now let's create route tables. I want us to create two route tables again, a public route table and a private route table. So we'll call it Primus Learning dash series dash public RT for public route table. We'll go ahead and select the VPC, and remember this VPC. This is the VPC we want to have. And we'll create. This is the public one, and action, if you go to action, we want to edit the subnet association. So we want to associate this one to since it is the public one, you see, you have to associate it to the public subnet. Very important. This one right here, you can miss it. So we've associated the public route table to our public subnet. Now we want to create another route table. Let's call this route table Primus Learning Series private, and call this route table RT, private RT. And we want to associate this to this VPC again and create. These are the same, leave these as they are, create. Once we've created, you just go to this and edit subnet association. So we want to associate this private subnet to the private route table, you see? So this route table, we're associating this route table to the private subnet. So this is a private subnet, we want to associate it. So we've created our public subnets and created a private subnet. And we've also created two route tables, a public route table and a private route table, and we have associated the two, right? So we have connected. That's the meaning of association. We have connected our route tables to our subnets, the various subnets. This route table here is associated to our subnet. Look at the subnet, it is associated. It is explicitly associated to it. And then the second one is also, this is the private one, right? You see that is the private route table. This is the name we gave it up here, private series. Private Primus Learning Series private route table. It is associated to our what? To our private subnet. Now the other one, which is the public one, is also associated to the public subnet, which is very important. The last piece we want to do is want to go back to the various subnets and pick the public one. Primus Learning, let's see. The public one is Primus Learning Series public route table, which is this one. We want to associate this one. You see, it is already associated. We want to make sure it's associated to the public subnets, which is associated. Now, on the route tables, this is very, very, very important. We want to edit this route table. Remember, we said there needs to be internet connectivity to this route table. Absolutely, absolutely important. So what we'll do is we'll create this as our destination. So everyone from the internet can have access to this particular route table through to the subnet. So the internet gateway, you have to select the internet gateway because we want to use the internet gateway as a service to connect, right? And we'll select that and save. Now, instead of just that local route, we have the local route, which gives internet access just for this VPC, within this VPC. Now, this public subnet is associated to the internet through this internet gateway. You see, and it is associated to what public subnet, right? To this public subnet. This is perfect, right? This simply represents what we have here. So you see that we created both. These are the subnets, and then we created two route tables. And what do? We associated this route table to this public subnet and associated this route table to this private subnet. That did not end here. The third thing we just did was we went in and edited the route. So you saw we went to the route, which was the route for the public subnet. We went only to the route of the public subnet, very important you know this, and edited it and associated this internet gateway to it. Remember, this one is the public one, and this is what happened here, right here. You see the internet gateway is associated here. It is not associated to this one. Note that. So there is internet access here, and if you create an instance here, it will have access to the internet, but this one will not have access to the internet. And so this is really good. So if we go back to our VPC now and look at our VPC, so let's select the VPC we're working with. Let's select that VPC. Our VPC is the Primus Learning Series VPC, right? This one right here. And if we just go to the VPCs themselves and open them up. So this is the VPC, Primus Learning Series VPC. And we open that up, see what happens. So this is the VPC. I wanted to show you this diagram because it's absolutely important. So this is the VPC right here. It has two subnets, the Primus Learning Series Public VPC, or public subnet. We didn't name this correctly. It's actually public subnet. And then the Primus Learning Series Private VPC, or private subnet, it should be the name. And then you see that we have route tables. We have three route tables. There is Primus Learning Series Private route table, and then there's the Primus Learning Series public route table. The private route table is not connected to an internet gateway. You can see that here in this workflow. It is not connected. The only one that is connected to the internet gateway is the Primus Learning Series public route table, which is connected to the Primus Learning Series internet gateway. And so there will not be internet connectivity from the private route table and from the private subnets. Very important you understand this as we just walk through, right? This right here, guys, is how you create a VPC. Now, to test this out, we will need to create an instance inside this subnet, right? So inside this subnet, if we go to this subnet, I really just maybe need to rename these subnets because we didn't give them the right names. Let me see if I can edit subnet settings. Can I give it a new name? No, not settings. Let's go back and try something else. Let's see if we can edit the tags. Manage tags. Yes, I think we can manage tags. So it's not VPC, it's subnet. This is what we want to do. Subnet. And save. And we want to go to the other one. So let's go back to the subnet and look for the other one and rename it correctly. And rename Primus Learning Series VPC. So we want to rename it and call it subnet. It's not a VPC. All right, perfect. So we have all what we needed now. So let's go ahead and go to the EC2 service, EC2. So we want to go to this part of the diagram, right? We want to go here and go to this part, to this EC2. We want to create an EC2 inside the public subnet and also create another one inside the private subnet, right? And just test them out. So let's go back and share our screen here to make sure everyone can see my screen. Now, let's go in and launch an EC2 instance. So we want to launch an EC2 instance called Primus Learning EC2 public EC2 instance. That's the name we want to give. So we'll give this one as public. And I want it to be an Ubuntu machine. So we'll give it an Ubuntu operating system there, or Ubuntu AMI, Amazon Machine Image. And then we'll select a key pair. If you don't know how to create a key pair, just click here and give it a name, and you choose pair and just create. Once you create, it will download the key pair on your local machine. So I did that with this one, Primus Learning VPC series. But let me just let me just select this one because we'll not use it a lot. And on the networking part, you need to edit this, absolutely important. So we are not using our default VPC this time around, but we want to use the Primus Learning Series VPC, which is the one we just created now. And remember, absolutely important, you want to put this in a public subnet, guys. Don't put it elsewhere. Put this in the public subnet, the public subnet. This is where it wants to be. You want it to be because only the public subnet has access to the internet. And then I want to enable the auto assign public IP. And I'll select an already existing security group, right? Or you could create a new security group. To create a new security group, you need to give it a name. So we'll just call this Primus Learning Series Public Security Group, SG. And then you can just copy this and paste here and go ahead. So you see there's SSH access port 22, which is open to anywhere. Anywhere here simply means everybody who has my key pair can connect to this instance through SSH. We'll leave that for now since this is just test, and remove this. And then we'll add a security role because we'll run a web page on this server, we want to have this HTTP access open. So we want to open this port 80 and leave it anywhere. Anywhere is 0.0.0.0.0/0 because it gives you internet access, right? You're open to the whole internet. So we'll just do that and then go to advanced. That's all we need up there. We'll go to advanced. And under advanced, guys, I have a script I'll share with you in a Git repository and put in the description section of this video. So I will just copy the data from here, make sure that I copy everything and go back to my video and go back to my console, sorry, and paste it here. So all you want to do in this script, right, is install, that's a bash script, by the way, run updates on this machine, install Apache, which is a web server. And then we want to have the IP address of this instance displayed on our website once we run this, and we want to create an HTML page in var/www/html/ and then the index.html page would have this name, and it will simply be content welcome to Primus Learning as the title, and then we'll have some background colors, and we'll also have some beautiful word, welcome to the Primus Learning. Let's just put to the Primus Learning AWS series tutorial. We'll have that as a title, as a big a header on there, and then this is a beautiful, we'll have that information, and we'll have a voting message here, right? A voting button, which says this is the best AWS tutorial series on the internet, yes or no? And you guys should vote. Please vote. You vote when this web page comes up. Vote on the comment section for me, guys. Leave me your votes. Let's know if this is the best AWS tutorial session series that you have in the internet. So want is this to have as the user data. So I'll share this data with you guys, by the way, this page, so that you can use it as well. So launch this, go ahead and launch and see what happens. So we are launching our page, our EC2 instance, sorry, and our EC2 instance should be up and running in a moment. So this is the EC2 instance. It still should be loading in a moment here. So note, guys, that the instance has a .1, right? Remember this, can you guys remember now a 10.0.1/something, right? Our IP or instance IP should be same, 10.0.1. And we said this range should be 1 to 256, right? And 245 is the number. It would randomly pick it, right? So it is within the correct range, and it is really looking good. So let's see if it's running, and we'll go here and test our thing out. So test it out. It's still running. It will take a couple of minutes to come up. So it'll take some time to show any changes here. Let's see if it works. All right, so it's failing, but it will take a moment to come up. All right, so it's working. So you see that our Apache is installed. Very soon, it will display our page. Our page should be displayed, which means our VPC is working as expected, guys. Now there's internet access to this. We have internet access through the VPC that we created, and we established an internet gateway to that subnet, and so we're able to really connect. And yes, this is our web page, guys. This is our web page. Welcome to the Primus Learning AWS series tutorial, and this is a beautifully colored HTML landing page for your AWS tutorial series, enhanced with modern CSS styling for a more attractive and engaging user experience. Here is the IP address of this instance. So it picked up the IP address of this instance, which is the private IP address of the instance, right? As I showed you earlier, this is the private IP. So if I just do a find here, a find. it should display this IP address right here, right? You see, it's the same IP address as is displayed here. And yes, I told you guys to go and vote. Go ahead and vote, guys. This is the best AWS tutorial series on the internet. Yes or no? Please go ahead and vote on our comment section so that I know what you guys are thinking. So if you vote, it will just take you to a, normally should take you to a backend, but there's no backend on this. You could vote no. It will take you to a backend, but no backend. Just this web page for now, guys. So let me know what you think on the comment section for this VPC. So we've created a VPC. We've created an EC2 instance, which is this right here. And it now has internet access, right? You can see that it now has internet access. This one does not have internet access. If I create a VPC inside that subnet, look at what happens. So if I create a VPC, an instance, sorry, if I create an EC2 instance inside that private subnet, look at what happens. So we'll create Primus Learning dash series private EC2 instance. So we'll create this instance inside the private subnet. So select Ubuntu again and create it, same thing that we did for the other one. We want to select the same thing here. Private key pair, we'll select the same. For networking, we'll just edit it and make sure we're using the correct VPC, which is Primus Learning Series VPC. And here we want to select the private subnet, Primus Learning Series private, note it, private subnet instead of the public. Remember, we want to create this one. It will not have internet access. Although we can enable this, but it will still not have internet access because it is in in a private subnet. And we'll select the same public, even a public subnet. Let's select even a public security group, right? Let's select a public security group. It will still not have internet access, right? Because it's basically basically not having that internet access granted because it's in a private subnet. All right, so let's put this here. Same script and launch. So we're launching this in a private subnet. We are not expecting it to display that web page. We should see an error page instead of a web page displayed. Okay, so it's loading. So it's still pending. It's still pending, guys. Give it a moment. It's taking its time to install. So you see the IP range is as expected, right? You see it is showing the 10.0.2 / something, right? Or dot something, right? This is what it's showing. It's showing 10.0.2.5, which means it falls within the range 1 to 156 IP addresses, right? This is what we're expecting, guys. Very nice. So we'll copy this public IP. Though we gave it a public IP, it doesn't have internet access. You'll see that it will not reflect like this one. It would not reflect like this one because it is in a private subnet. It is running inside a private subnet. So let's refresh this. Let's wait for this. Take a moment to run. We'll go away from it. It will just run and fail. You see, it will run and run and run and run and fail. So it will just turn around, nothing to show for it, and simply fail. And we can also access this instance from this instance right here, the public one, and curl things from the internet and do everything. Meanwhile, this one, you will not be able to do anything like that. You see, it's just, this one is even taking so long just to fail out. I'm expecting it to fail out. Let's put it in a new browser, maybe in a new tab. So it will just fail out. It will not show anything. I think it failed out here. No, not here. It was not here. So let's X this one. We're done with it. All right. So this is it. It's failed out. This page is not working, right? Nothing. Didn't send any data. Nothing. Still, it's just dark. it's an empty page because it will just say error out like that because it's not connected to the internet. This page is not connected to the internet. All right, let's go ahead, guys, and let's not delete yet. So we've created this. I wanted to show you in my diagram. So what should happen here? You see, this is the right diagram here. I modified this diagram a little bit. This one, it has everything connected, so we are able to access it. This one really doesn't have. But what you could do is you could create a NAT gateway, right, and associate that NAT gateway to this route table, to the public route table. Actually, the route table, the NAT gateway should be in the public subnet, but the route table should also have a route to that NAT gateway. That way, it is able to, this instance in here should be able to communicate or should be able to get updates from the internet, but you should not leave the internet and access the instance. So to create a NAT gateway, right, you could do that. We could go ahead and create a NAT gateway by going here. So go back to our VPC, go to VPC. And in our VPCs, you see you have NAT gateways. I have one already. I created one earlier. So you need to go here and create a NAT gateway and call it Primus Learning Series NAT Gateway. Right, this is the NAT gateway, and you want to put it inside the public subnet. Very important. You are not putting in a private subnet. This one you are putting in the public subnet because the NAT gateway needs to have internet access, right? So it has to go into the Primus Learning Series public subnet. Where is it? Primus Learning Series public subnet. Primus Learning Series public subnet. So it has to go into this public subnet, and it has to be public, and you can allocate an IP for it. So you just do allocate there, and it has a public connectivity. You want it to have public connectivity. And once you've done this, this is not all. This is the first part. So you've created this resource here. You've created it and associated it to the public subnet, but you haven't done this part, right? You haven't done this part, which is displayed on this other diagram here. So on this diagram, you see that we have done this. It's connected to the private subnet, connected to the private subnet directly. It doesn't pass through the route table, but it is not connected to this route table here. It is connected to here, but it's not connected here. So that's the part we want to do. So we'll go back and go to the VPC resource. Anyway, let's just set VPC and go back to VPC. So we've created a NAT gateway. We want to associate, go to our route tables, right? Go to our route tables and look for the correct route table, which is the Primus Learning Series private route table, this one. You see it is not associated to anything, right? It only has the subnet association, which is good, but we want to add a route to it. So we want to add 00. This is absolutely important. It has the destination is the internet. You want the instances that will be in the subnet or that will be connected to this subnet to be able to access things from the internet, but nothing from the internet should come into it. And so you're going here and you want to do NAT gateway instead of internet gateway. You see the difference? NAT gateway instead of internet gateway. So you select NAT and you select the NAT gateway we just created, which is this one, and you save. And now this instance, you can download things into this instance from the internet, guys. This is how you create a complete VPC and you have something like this. So this is the whole structure. So you have, remember the process that we followed. We created a VPC with this range. We created two subnets, the public subnet and the private subnet. The public one had the 10.0.1.0/24, while the private one had a 10.0.2 .0/24. Created instances are the instances picked up that range of IP addresses, and this one picked this range of IP addresses. We also created an internet gateway and connected it or associated it to this public subnet, and created a private a route table and associated it here to the private table, to the private subnet, sorry. And also we created a NAT gateway and associated it to the public subnet, or put it in the public subnet, and then routed it to the private subnet. While we did create an internet gateway and routed it to the public subnet. So there is no direct access from the internet to this one, but this one can go to the internet to do updates or do anything. So this is how you create it manually, guys. This is how you manually would create a VPC. And the steps are simple, right? The steps are simple. You can go to the steps by yourself. You see that the first step is to create a VPC. The second step is to create the internet gateway, and when you create, it will not be attached. It will show detached, and you simply attach. Then the third thing is to create the subnets, the two subnets. The fourth thing is to create the two route tables, public and private, and then associate the route tables to the various subnets. Associate the private route table to the private subnet, the public route table to the public subnet. Once you've done that, that's on the subnet association place. Once you've done that, you then need to come back here and deal with the routes, right? Because you already created the route and the internet gateway, you will now be able to edit and add the public route through the internet gateway to the public IP. And then for the private one, you see that we routed it to what? We routed it to a NAT gateway instead. So this is the private IP address. When you see NAT gateway, you know that it is private. When you see internet gateway, you know that it will go to the public one. And that's how the demo looked. We're able to create an EC2 instance in there, and we tested, and everything is working as expected. So I'll go ahead and delete my EC2 instance. Let me go ahead and do the deletion. So I will go ahead and delete these two instances because they are wasting. Go to state and terminate. I'll also go to the NAT gateway. That's under the VPC, and delete it. I don't want that NAT gateway there. I can leave the internet gateway for now, but I'll just go here and delete these NAT gateways. I can delete just one at a time. I think, okay, I can delete because it's no longer associated. Delete, and delete. All right, so guys, we've cleaned up our resources. The VPC is still there. You can clean up the VPC. Remember, you go in the reverse order. If you want to delete it, you have to unassociate it, and then you delete and unassociate, delete, because they are all connected. It will be challenging for you to delete one by one if you don't do that right. So you see, if you just go to VPC here and try to delete, it will tell you it's not able to delete. If you go here and just try to do this, and delete VPC, see what it says. Unable to delete. This VPC cannot be deleted until you complete the following actions. You have to delete this one. You see, the VPC contains one or more in use network interfaces. So you have to delete all these things that are connected to it. You see, this one is still deleting. It will delete all of these things that are connected before you're able to delete. All right, so we'll not do that for now, else this video will be long. We'll go to the Terraform part of it, guys, which is the recommended way. This is the recommended way to do this when you're working for an organization, right? All right, so this is our Terraform directory. It's the Primus Learning Series directory, which we created the other day. It's the folder we created, and all we need here is the main.tf and the user data.sh files. These ones, I can delete these and it will not affect me in any way. So let me just go ahead and delete that, so you see that nothing is affected. I'll go ahead and delete this one as well. I don't need it. I'll also go ahead and delete this one, but never delete in an organization, because if you delete your state file now on an organization, you have killed the organization. Everything is done. So I'm deleting this because I don't need it. I already destroyed the resources that I created, right? But you don't have to delete in your organization. So these are the main files. Let me walk you through the main files. All right. So what we have here, let me expand this a little more. One moment. Let me make sure this is big enough. All right. So expand the screen a bit, maybe. That's fine. All right. So we have here the provider. First of all, we have the provider. And remember, I told you the AWS provider, HashiCorp Terraform provides you with thousands and thousands of providers that you can leverage to be able to connect to resources in AWS. So it will download this provider called the AWS provider. And the region that we'll be connecting to in AWS is US East 1. And how are we connecting to AWS? Remember, we created the user called the Primus Learning Something user, and we granted it administrator access, and we did an AWS configure here, and we passed the secret access key and the secret key here, and so it's still connected. Remember, we told you users have long-term permissions, right? While roles have short-term permissions on a defined time stamp, right? So it could be 1 hour, it could be up to 12 hours for roles. But with users, you have longer expiration dates for you can even have it for life, right? Your user access can be for life if you so want, but it's not a good practice anyway. So that's the first part. Then the second part is the VPC resource that we're creating. So we are just passing the term resource here, which is HashiCorp language, to create a particular thing in AWS. And the resource type is AWS VPC. So if you use AWS VPC, will not work. It has to be AWS _ VPC. And then if you read this, it says a resource block declares a resource of a given type with a given local name. The name is used to refer to this resource from elsewhere in the same Terraform module, but has no significance outside of the scope of a module. So it's talking about this main. This is the name of this resource, an internal name of this resource that can only be used within this resource. It can be called from elsewhere within this module. And that's why you see main down here is being called from here, because we want to pass this VPC to the internet gateway. We want to attach this VPC to the internet gateway, and that's why we're passing AWS VPC, which is this name that I told, which is this resource type that I told you, dot the name of the resource, the internal name, which can only be used within this module, and then dot the ID, the VPC ID that we create up there, right? We'll associate it. So this resource block is defined this way. And the IP range, you see the IP range for the VPC, it is 10.0.0.0/16. And the name of the VPC would be Primus Learning Series VPC. Then we go ahead to create a second resource, which is the internet gateway. Remember, we created an internet gateway after the VPC. The first thing we did was the VPC, as this diagram shows. That's the range 0.0.0.0/16. Thing is the internet gateway. So you're creating the internet gateway, the second place, and this is exactly what we're doing here. And this internet gateway is VPC through this VPC ID called AWS _ VPC as the resource type. The main is the name, which just defined above, and the ID. So it's picking up this ID, creating this resource inside that VPC. So it's attached to that VPC and it will not be detached. Remember, it was once we created that VPC, that internet gateway manually, it was detached. Then we had to attach it to that VPC. That same action is taking place here. Then we have the third one, which is the public subnet. Remember, we created two subnets, the public subnet and the private subnet. So this public subnet, you have to necessarily give it the resource type AWS subnet or AWS underscore subnet, and you have to give it an internal name, which is also called a reference name, which is public subnet. You can name it anything here. The CIDR block, guys, for the public one, remember we gave it a 10.0.1.0/24 so that it will have 250 IP addresses. Any instance that we created inside this public subnet would have the range, would have an IP, a private IP that falls something between 10.0.1.12.165 265 or 56 IP addresses. So it will fall within that range, guys. So every machine that will be created inside this public VPC or public subnet, sorry, would have that range. It will have .1 and then any other thing from 1 to 256. The name here will be Primus Learning Public Subnet. Same thing applies for this one. Any results that will be created here will have a .2 instead of a .1. The .1 will be public, the .2 will be private, and we'll name it private resources. And then remember, we created two route tables. One route table was public, the other route table was private. This is the public route table. It will be created, same thing, same name. It will be associated to the particular VPC, right? This route table associated to the VPC. You saw that when we're creating the route table, we're selecting the particular VPC where we wanted it to be. That's what we're doing here. And then we'll give it a name through a tag. To give it a resource, a name in Terraform with a tag, you have to pass it like this. And then remember, this is absolutely important for the public subnet. The public subnet is done this way through the CIDR range. And so it has to have public access, and it is connected to what? It is connected to the internet gateway. Why? Because it is the public subnet. It has to have the internet gateway connected to it. And remember, we created the internet gateway above. So it's referencing this resource type, and the name of that internet gateway was just GW up there. So this is the internal resource name, which we said references, or it's also called the reference name .id. So it will just pick the ID, and the ID is the ID of that subnet or of that internet gateway is only known when the resource is created. You see, this ID will only be known when the resource is created, and then we'll pick it up down there. So that's what it's doing there. And so that's the route table. So let's see where there's the public route table, and then the private route table. You see, there's nothing. There's no association to the internet on the public, on the private one. What we did the last time was we added the NAT gateway, but we have not added in this code yet. We added a NAT gateway to the private one. All right, and then there was an association. Remember, we associated the route table that we created to the subnets, to the private subnet and to the public subnet. So associate public route table with public subnet. This is what is done at this level. And then we associate the private route table with the private subnet, which is absolutely important. You have to do that. And then the other resources are just the EC2 instance resources, the security group with the port 22 open and port 80 open. So this is ingress, right? Ingress, anything from this can come in to this instance from port 22. Anything from the internet can come in through port 80 and visit that website or visit that machine, right? And then egress, so going out of the machine, you define everything. And then the results, we're creating an IAM role, and the rest of the things are just EC2 instances. We want to create two EC2 instances, and the instances will have the resource type, AWS instance, web public. This is a public because it will be located in the public subnet. And that's why you see we are passing the subnet ID here to be the public subnet ID. Very important. And then on the public machine or public server, want to add user data, right? Want to add a user data, and it is in a file. That user data is found in this other file. It is the same data that we used and put in the user data section when we're manually creating. And then also we are referencing the security group that we created above. And this is the resource name, Primus Learning Public Instance. Then this same for this second instance is a second EC2 instance that we're creating with the same image, same type, but we are not, the only difference between this one is that we are not using this user data. We don't want to use it because it is in a private subnet and so doesn't have internet access. And this script, same thing. You see the way it is. It's just a bash script installing Apache after updating the machine, and we are getting the host name and a bunch of HTML page here, which is just would display some information. Welcome to your Primus Learning AWS series tutorial, and have a button where you can vote. I showed you that already. And then we are starting Apache and just enabling it to run. That's all we're doing in these scripts, guys. So if you go ahead, right, and do Terraform init, it will initialize the backend, the AWS backend, and get everything going for you. So you see, it will initialize this and be done in a moment. Then we can run. So it's going ahead and installing all these things. You see, it's finding the latest version of HashiCorp AWS, and it's installing HashiCorp AWS version 5.4.2.0. That's what it's installing. It's taking its sweet time to install. Once it's done installing, we'll just run and create our resources. So let's give it a moment. It should be fast. Anyway, let's just give it a moment while it does that. We can go back to our AWS environment here and see if everything looks good. Yep, I think everything here looks good. I hope this is making sense, guys. So we did this through the manual method by creating it in the AWS AWS console, and now we're trying to do the same thing through Terraform. We're saying Terraform would be the recommended method for those who are working in bigger organizations who want to do this. With this method, you see that this script right here, okay, it's initialized. You see that this script, you can use this script to create it in different environments. From the terminal, I could make errors, or from the terminal through the CLI, I could make errors. From the AWS console, I could make errors and not be able to know what I'm doing because I'll be clicking one thing and creating the other. These I'm just creating in one file. So as it's initialized, I can just go ahead and run Terraform apply. I could run a plan, right? You run a plan to see the resources that will be created. It will tell you, it will plan the resources that will be created for you. That way you will see the number of resources that will be created, how they will be created, and everything that will be known after. So it's giving you a plan. Terraform gives you a plan of every resource that will be created. So you see, this is what will be happening. It will create how many resources? It will create 13 resources for us. So I'll go ahead and run Terraform apply. So apply simply means create. In other words, I'll do dash auto approve so that I don't say yes afterwards. And this will run and create the resources for me. So it will take some time, but it should be creating the resources in a moment. You see 13 resources will be added. You see it's creating, it's gone ahead and it started it creates in any order, guys. So Terraform doesn't follow the order that you have on your script. It will go ahead and create the order, figure out which order it should create the resources, and it goes ahead and creates them for you. So you see it's creating the public subnet, it's creating everything. It's doing the public subnet association, and that is complete. It's doing the private subnet creation instance. Is creating the private instance now. It created a public instance that was complete. It's creating the private one, still creating. You see it tells us they're still creating. So it's still running the create. It's 30 seconds and still running the create. Couple of minutes, it should be done, guys, and we can go and verify our instances and make sure everything is looking good and as expected. All right, so it's done creating. So if you go back to your AWS environment, and go to your VPCs, you should see a new VPC with this type of name, right? And that's it. You should see a new VPC with this type of name. There's it. We have two here because we manually created one, right? So we've created one. I don't know which one, but let's go to the instances. We'll know from the instances. EC2. Let's go to EC2. And now we'll have two instances that are running. And voila, we have a public instance that's running and we have a private instance that is running. So this one is initializing. You see the public one is inside .1, 10.0.1.104, which is as expected, guys. It falls within this range, 10.0.1 dot something between 1 and 256. So this is accurate. This is the public instance. So if we copy this and go here to the internet or go here, let's just delete these pages. Let's just put this here and run. It should be able to give us, yes, this is the page. It's brought it up. Welcome to your Primus Learning AWS series tutorial. And it gives you all the information. Here is the IP address of this instance, 10.0.1.104, which is what is expected. It's the same thing as this instance right here, right? Same thing. So guys, I want you guys to go ahead and vote. This is the best AWS tutorial series on the internet, yes or no? Go ahead and vote. This script is a nicely written one, right? I will share with you in the description section of this video so you can test this out yourselves. You can go ahead and vote. If you vote here, it will just go to this not found page because there's no backend defined. You vote here, it will go to it. So what you guys can do is vote on the comment section for me, guys. Please, that will encourage me. Leave us the comments, leave us the likes and the shares so that we can continue providing this kind of content. All right. So that's what happens with the public one. The private one, so if we go to the private one, you'll see that the private one doesn't even have this is the private one. It doesn't even have a public IP, right? There's no public IP here. And this is the private instance. And it falls somewhere between 10.0.2, which is what is expected in our private subnet, 10.0.2. So you see, guys, our thing is represented well in Terraform and it's creating resources as expected and everything is looking good. All right, so the last thing for us to do is to destroy these resources. We've tested out with the resources. We're good. We're saying, hey, that's nice. Let's go ahead and destroy our resources. It will be difficult to destroy the VPC we created manually. But with this one, you can just run Terraform destroy. Terraform destroy dash auto approve, and it will destroy all the resources for us at once, and you will not need to go. It will go and figure out the order to destroy all the resources for us, and you will not need to manually go and do any work yourself. So guys, you can see how nice, how quick this can be. It is really easy to go. You see, it shows you the plan to destroy, and it tells you it destroyed 13 resources because it created 13 resources earlier. Right? So this is going ahead to do the destroy for us. We don't need to do anything. And you can keep this script and share and create another environment. Though this script is just one script, it's not in modular format. That's complex. We have not reached where we'll create Terraform modules yet, but it is doing the work that we expect it to do. And this through Terraform is the recommended method for this type of workloads, right? So I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you loved this video and learned how to create a VPC from scratch and you can use it in your organization, right? So what we did, again, just to recap, is we created a VPC with the subnet, with two subnets inside. The two subnets were, one was public and the other was private, and we created two instances inside. One of the instances was able to access the internet because we had an internet gateway associated to its route table, while the other is not able to because it has just a just it doesn't have internet access on the route table. It's not routed to the internet. Rather, we manually created a NAT gateway and added to that route table for the private subnet, and it was able, the private subnet or the EC2 instance in the private subnet was able to go into the internet and connect to things and download things, but nobody from the internet could access it. So that's basically what we did in this video, guys. Thanks for watching. My name is Primus Veku, and see you again in our next tutorial session. Bye bye.